Puerto Rico drowning in debt, and there's also a growing push to make it a state. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about that with the director of a documentary called The Last Colony. But first, here's a clip from that film with both sides of that debate.
If you make the commitment of being the 51st state, you have to make the commitment of assimilate your culture, your identity, and we don't want that.
I don't want to become something else. I want to remain what I am. I am a Puerto Rican. Commonwealth allows me that.
Under statehood, we would participate to the same extent as any other state of the Union.
Our men and women in uniform have defended democracy in our nation with valor and courage, oftentimes in greater numbers than most states.
If we ever become a state, as I hope we do, I'll be a Puerto Rican American.
So an interesting debate. We'll get to that in a second, but first the ballooning debt. The island's $73 billion hole is more than 3 times that debt load that sent Detroit, for example, into bankruptcy, and that's not an option for Puerto Rico since it is a commonwealth and not a state. But Republicans in Congress, they want to change that and give the island the right to declare Chapter 9, but not statehood. New York Democratic Congressman Nydia Velázquez is urging President Obama to form a crisis group to deal with the problem there. And joining me now, the director of The Last Colony, Juan Agustin Marquez, and he's kind enough to join us on both of these issues. And first, put this in human terms. They've already said they can't pay it back here. Yeah. Translate what that means. I know there's a long story how they got there, but put it into human terms for the population of this of the country. How much of a crisis is this?
Well, there's a lot of pessimism in Puerto Rico, first of all. Like in terms of Puerto Rico, everybody's very sad, depressed. People are leaving the island by the thousands every day. The population has decreased dramatically. And that creates a huge problem for Puerto Rico, but it also creates a huge problem for the United States. You know, there's a lot of people coming into the United States. I mean, we are citizens. We have all rights to come to the United States. But, you know, where you accommodate all those people and what's going to happen with Puerto Rico, that's the big question that's on the table right now. How do we get to this problem? There's 2 parts of this problem. There's the colonial relationship, which in part sort of caused the problem because of colonial policies. Puerto Rico, like you said, cannot declare Chapter 9. We don't have control over our borders. Cabotage laws, it's a big deal in Puerto Rico because we have to pay, or we have to use the U.S. Merchant Marine and that's more expensive than using other marines.
And I want to get to your film, but we also changed policies here where we put in place here a very advantageous tax policy with the idea of companies settling there, and then all of a sudden Republican control of Congress didn't like the idea of in fact lost jobs and lost commerce over there and lost businesses, so they took away the exemption, and then it threw everything. There was really very little incentive for the corporations to incorporate there in Puerto Rico. But let's get to the statehood question. Just in those clips in itself, and I know the film gets into it, talk about the competing desires. If somebody could thread the needle, would they want it both ways? Would they want to be a state, but at the same end retain, you know, all their cultural individualism and everything else, or is it more just absolute one or the other?
Well, I think the right words to say it's the Puerto Rican paradox. You know, we are Americans, but we have this Latin American identity that we also want to preserve. So the debate is Commonwealth, independence, and statehood. This is the 3 classic questions that in Puerto Rico
in fact, I think a clip from your film speaks to this right here.
Yeah.
As a state, Puerto Rico would have the same 2 senators that California has and that Rhode Island has. We would have 5 members in the House of Representatives with a vote, which our current delegate does not have.
The status of Puerto Rico, the political status of Puerto Rico, in essence, is not an economic issue. It is a human rights issue.
So to that end, if you had to do a poll, and I'm sure the film looked at this, where is the majority of the island's sympathies? Do they want to be a state, or do they want to keep it the way it is?
Well, in 2012, actually, we had the 4th plebiscite in the island's history. So it was a 2-question, and it was basically a poll, an official poll on what we want to do. And the first question was, do you want to remain in the current situation with the United States? And 54% of the population said no. So we want to change what we have right now. The second question was, do you want statehood or independence? And that's where a big problem arises, because a lot of people left the second question blank. Because some people want statehood and some people just don't really want statehood, but they don't want independence, and they want to keep, perpetuate the colonial current situation. Because, this is all started in 1952. Well, Puerto Rico was invaded in 1898. In 1952, we got the Commonwealth Constitution. And it worked out pretty well for a long time. So now that we're seeing the negative consequences of what happened in 1952 with the Commonwealth Constitution, now everything's shifting, and now we're seeing a shift and a growth, a tendency towards statehood. But it's not there. It's not over 50% yet. And to become a state, you need a supermajority, not just a 51 or 52%. You need at least 70% of the population wanting statehood. So that's a big problem, because
and then you take our political reality too, where in the states, in all likelihood, the demographics would probably be 2 Democratic senators, and the current makeup of the U.S. House and Senate, for that matter, that would be next to impossible. Really quickly, the film, for folks who want to get a chance to see it, tell them how they can.
Well, they can visit us at thelastcolony.com or facebook.com/thelastcolony, and we're going to start selling the DVD pretty soon. So just sign up on our website, and we'll let you know.
It's done terrific in the award in the festivals, as well as 6 weeks plus in Puerto Rico as well. So we enthusiastically tell you to go check it out. All right, coming up next. Speaking of financial problems, while everyone is focusing on the financial crisis in Greece, we're also looking at China and how the problems there could be going from bad to worse and could bring problems here as well.